Okay guys, so we are going to try out these video notes. Hopefully the volume is loud enough. If it is not, make sure the volume on the computer is all the way up and on the TV is all the way up. So I'll give you a second if you need to make adjustments on that. Okay, so we are going to start with proportions today. This is review from last year. We will take it a step further like we always do, but we should be totally okay with these notes. And if you have questions, please let me know on Google Classroom. You can just comment either on the post with the completed notes for today, which we'll post later, or you can comment them on the group and alone problems post. But let's go ahead and get started. So, page 39, and what we need to write is that proportions are equivalent fractions. Oh, well, look at that. Already making mistakes. Equivalent fractions. Those fractions are often called ratios. And what we're going to do is we're going to write the steps to solve, and we're going to write an example. We'll do the two as a class problems, and then you'll head into group work. I think you guys are starting to kind of get with the flow of things. So to solve, there are 3 steps. The first step is to cross multiply. The second step is to set up an equation, and that would be using your cross multiplication. And then the third step would be to solve using DCVS. Ducks can violently snap. So let's go ahead and do an example. I'm going to have 3/15 equals x over 72. So our goal here is to solve for x. And to do that, following our steps here, we're going to cross multiply. And when I cross multiply, I always start with the variable side. So I'm going to start with this 15x. So I have 15 times x, which is just 15x. I have 3 times 72, which is 216. And my step 2 I have already fulfilled. I have built an equation with my cross multiplication. And now I'm just on to solving. I don't have any distributing, so I'm good there. I don't have any combined like terms, and I don't have to move the variable. I'm just solving. Divide by 15 on both sides. And x equals 72 over 5 when it's simplified. Again, leave it improper. All right. If you do need to watch that video, if you missed some of those notes, we can, oh, I guess I should say this while they're up there. We can go back when I post them on Google Classroom. You'll have the access to this link, so you can update anything you didn't get to. Okay. So still on page 39, we're just doing the as a class problems on the bottom, following the same steps we just had. Cross multiply. So I'm going to start with my variable. So I have 42 times 4w, which is 168w. By the way, if you have not grabbed a calculator yet, you can in a second. And 12 times 56 is 672. And to get w by itself, hopefully someone said it, we divide by 168 on both sides. And to save you all the stress and anguish of dividing those out, I'm just going to tell you that w equals 4. All right, this next one looks a lot different. We have variables in both of our fractions, and there's some subtraction going on here. So if you are not listening, I hope you are listening now. This one is definitely going to be using DCVS. So I'm going to write it up there just to help me out. And I'm going to start the same exact way. I'm going to cross multiply. But this time, I'm going to start with this -2. This time, this -2 is being multiplied by the 11 and the minus 4c. So how would I show the negative 2 going to both things? Okay, with parentheses, using the distributive property. So I'm going to set that cross multiplication up as negative 2 times 11 minus 4c. That will equal the other side that we have cross multiplying, 11 times the entire numerator, c minus 8. So according to DCVS, I do have a distribute step, so I'm going to start with that. When I distribute, I get negative 22 plus 8c equals 11c minus 88. Do I have a combined like term step? Hopefully you answered no, because nothing on one side can be put together. So now I'm on to my move the variable step. I always like to get them on the left side. Oh no. Oh no! I made a mistake. Hold on. Just kidding. No, I didn't. Okay. So now, moving the variables, I'm going to subtract 11c on both sides. So I end up with negative 22 minus 3c equals negative 88. I'm now on to my solve step, SAMmed, subtract, add, then multiply, divide. So I add 22 to both sides. And I have negative 3c equals negative 66. I'm running out of room here, so I'm not going to show this next step, but we would divide both sides by negative 3 to get that c equals 22. One thing we didn't talk about yet is to check and make sure you're correct. You could plug in whatever you have to your variables in your original problem and make sure it works. So 22 minus 8. Sorry, I got sidetracked. Okay, sorry. 22 minus 8 is 14. And then we have 4 times 22, which is 88. And then we have 11 minus 88. So that over here is a negative 77. And so now I'm just kind of making sure that both sides equal. So 14 over negative 2 would be a negative 7. Negative 77 over 11 is also a negative 7. So that proportion works. 22 is correct. Okay. I would like for you now to work as a group. And that means as a group. No one today is working alone, okay? And nobody's getting ahead. I know who you are. You're going to work on the group problems on page 40, writing all of your work and answers in your book. Check your answers on Google Classroom. And if you finish, you may work on the alone problems on Google Classroom. So I'm going to ask that you pause the video. And Mr. Ercolano, if you could set a timer for 7 minutes for the students for this part. All right, welcome back. We are now on to page 41. Yes, we do have a few more notes, but they are not going to be crazy long, I promise. So on page 41, we are now going to talk about proportion word problems. Again, this is review from last year. You are going to do just fine. Okay, so for proportion word problems, there are a few things that we need to write down that are going to be very important for us. First, we're going to go through these steps. Determine the objects/units being compared. What we mean by that is define your variable. So that means tell me what are we looking for? What does x equal? Also, build a proportion with your units so that we can see that all of your units are consistent. So this is just an example. If I had a word problem comparing miles and kilometers, I would put miles over kilometers, and I'd need to keep those units the same on the other side. So building this unit proportion is very important. Then you're going to write your proportion that represents this situation, and that's actually with numbers. You'll plug the numbers in, solve your proportion using cross multiplication, and I'm going to write here something that you all love to do. Show your work. And then finally, circle your final answer, and please, please, please include units. Okay, so in this note space, in this blank space down here, we're going to write a few things. I want us to write that same example that we just had above, miles over kilometers equals miles over kilometers. And I want you to write how else this could be written, because not everybody has to set up a proportion the same. We could put miles over miles equals kilometers over kilometers, as long as whatever numbers you had matching up here match across down here. So they will still give you the exact same answer. And we are keeping our units consistent. That is a huge, huge key. Keep them consistent. Some other things that will be important for you to know before we hop into word problems, just some reminders for you. If you have a percent, the proportion we use for percents is part over whole equals percent over 100. And last but not least, something else you learned last year, just as a reminder, is similar figures are proportional. And so similar figures are when you have a triangle that's smaller and then a triangle that's bigger, but they're just, maybe the smaller is half the size of the larger. So they're proportional in that you can go from the smaller triangle to the larger one, increasing by the same amount for each side. Okie doke. Let's do this one as a class problem on the bottom of page 41. The ship model kits sold at a hobby store have a scale of 1 foot to 600 feet. A completed model of the Queen Elizabeth II is 1.6 feet long. Estimate the actual length of the Queen Elizabeth II. So I want everyone to draw a vertical line about quarter of the way over. The space on the left is going to be for our notes. The space on the right is going to be for our work. We are going to start with defining our variable. So what is it we are actually looking for here? What do we not know? Okay, that would be the actual length of the Queen Elizabeth. So right here, I'm going to write actual length. And then also in my note space, I'm going to write down our unit proportion with just writing down our units in our fractions. So I see this lovely scale they give me. And what that scale actually means is that it's the scale to the actual length. So my proportion would be scale over actual equals scale over actual. And now let's plug in our lovely numbers. So into our fractions, I'm actually going to write what they give me, that 1 over 600. So I have 1 over 600. That's my scale over my actual. And that's going to equal this 1.6 feet long. Is that going to be the scale or the actual length? Good, it's going to be the scale. So that's going to go in our numerator. And then x, since that's our actual length, what we're finding, that's going to go in our denominator. And now we solve. So when we cross multiply, I'm going to get 1x, which you do not have to write the 1, equals 600 times 1.6 is 960. So I get that x equals 960 feet. That is the actual length of the Queen Elizabeth II. Okay. Now, I would like for you to complete the as a group problems on page 42. You guys know the drill. Check your answers on Google Classroom. If you finish early, you can go back to page 40, finish whatever problems you did not get to, or you can do the extra practice problems on page 43. I'm going to explain the next part so that when the timer is up, you guys can just kind of move on. So bear with me for one moment. But the next thing you're going to do after we finish up the 10 minutes of group work is we're going to do an activity. Your recording sheet is going to look like what's pictured here. And this is what you're going to do. You're going to complete the activity around the room. Again, this is after the group work. Okay, so just bear with me. You're going to complete the activity in the room. And you'll notice right here, you are doing this all in order. When you finish that, check your answers. There's a folder up front that says Algebra Activity Answers, so you can check your answers. Complete any of the group and alone problems you did not get to from today. Complete the extra practice problems on page 43. Now go back to the pages listed and answer any unanswered questions you have not gotten to. Finally, complete your formative. Update your formative chart with the percent, and that's on page 24. And then the one that we can't really see here, it says to work on your homework. So that is the very last thing that you do. Okay? So Mr. Ercolano will put this picture up on the screen after your 10 minutes of group work. So Mr. Ercolano, if you want to go ahead and set a timer for 10 minutes, and I'm done chatting with you guys. I hope you have a wonderful day. Please be good for Mr. Ercolano, and I will see you on Friday or Monday, whichever day I have you next. Adios.